Hey, I'm so excited that you have decided to opt into this little workshop on procrastination. This is the Wait No More formula that works for procrastination. So I am going to share my screen and we are going to get started. So the Wait No More formula to beat procrastination. You can beat procrastination. Now, this workshop is for anybody, but I happen to have ADHD, so I'm going to share strategies that work for me with ADHD. I mean, let's face it, everybody procrastinates. And when we're faced with something that we don't want to do, many of us put it off until later. But habitual procrastinators, they often avoid difficult tasks again and again, and deliberately sometimes look for distractions in order to avoid a task. And people with ADHD especially struggle with chronic procrastination, and that causes all sorts of problems at work and at home. When you're distracted by outside stimuli and internal thoughts, then it's hard to get started sometimes. So what is procrastination? Let's start with that. Procrastination is delaying or putting off tasks until the last minute, or past their deadline. Some researchers define it as a form of self-regulation failure. It's just this irrational delay of tasks despite potentially negative circumstances. And it has been said that around 20% of US adults are chronic procrastinators, but the rate is higher if ADHD is involved. So no matter how well organized you are, chances are that you found yourself wasting time watching TV, scrolling social media, shopping online, when you're supposed to be doing something else. And there are different types of procrastinators. You've got the passive and the active. The passive just kind of puts things off until the decision is made for them. And in other words, they meet a deadline to make a decision and they're like, oh, well, I missed that, Or the active ones, they're the ones who delay purposely because, they like to work under pressure and it makes them feel challenged and motivated. And there are different roles that procrastinators play. You've got the perfectionists. They put off tasks out of the fear of not being able to complete a task perfectly. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later on. You have the dreamer. They put off tasks because they're not good at paying attention to detail. They're just kind of out there thinking of the big picture, the big ideas. The defier, this is the person who just says, I shouldn't have to be bound to your time schedule. You've got the worrier. They put off tasks because of fear of change, or, they don't want to leave the comfort of the known and they worry about the unknown. And you've got the person who's a crisis maker. They put off tasks because they like working under pressure. That's the motivation by procrastination type person. The overdoer. This is the person who takes on too much and then struggles with finding time to start and complete a task. I think that's the one that I can relate to the most. So let's talk about what causes procrastination. A lot of times we assume that projects won't take as long to finish as they really will. And that gives us this false sense of security because we falsely believe that we have plenty of time to complete the task. And so we end up procrastinating. Motivation. A lot of us want to wait for motivation. And so we put things off because we're relying on feelings. And so one of the biggest causes of procrastination is this false notion that we have to feel inspired or motivated on a task at a particular moment in order to do it. And the reality is, and if you wait until you're in the right frame of mind to do certain tasks, especially ones that you don't feel like doing, then the time will probably never come. And then the task never gets completed. That's just the way that works. We've got some cognitive distortions that we need to think about. People overestimate how much time they have left. They underestimate how much time they have. And they also overestimate how motivated they're going to feel in the future. They think, well, if I wait, I'm going to feel more like doing it later. And then they think that they need to be in this right frame of mind to work on a project. And so that kind of goes along with some other reasons. Sometimes we don't know what needs to be done, so we're kind of paralyzed. Sometimes we don't know how to do something, and so we put it off because, it's going to be a big learning curve for us. Sometimes we just don't want to do something. It's boring. It's hard. And then sometimes we just don't care if it gets done or not. I mean, let's face it, not caring when something is due or when it gets done, not feeling in the mood to do it, being in the habit of waiting to the last minute. Sometimes we just have gotten into that habit. We think that we work better under pressure. We think we can finish at the last minute. Sometimes we have trouble getting started, and then sometimes we just forget. And other reasons might be we blame being sick or poor health, and that does happen sometimes. So here's some other reasons. We need time to think about it. We delay one task in favor of working on something else that wasn't really what we needed to be doing. And so whether you have ADHD or not, there are some things that you can be aware of. These are ADHD symptoms, but others might have these as well. And that would be distractibility, short attention span, forgetfulness, disorganization, problems with prioritizing, sequencing, and trouble managing time. And so those all lead to procrastination. And procrastination causes problems. You've got financial stress, problems in relationships, problems at work. If projects don't get turned in on time or job responsibilities are not completed until the last minute, a lot of times your boss will notice that. And if you're your own boss, you notice it and you beat yourself up, right? So there's a negative consequence that comes with procrastination, whether we want to admit it or not. We know that's true. The higher levels of stress and illness and the increased burden placed on our relationships comes with procrastination. People start to get irritated with you, because they're tired of you waiting until the last minute. You might have delinquent bills or things that that should have been done, and now that they aren't done, it's created more work than if you had done it originally. So really, time management is pain management. And that's important to remember. Time management is pain management. If you've experienced repeated frustrations on certain types of tasks, you may naturally avoid those tasks to avoid the negative feelings that working on those tasks can bring up. Because we all naturally want to avoid discomfort, right? A big part of tackling procrastination comes down to managing our emotions. We have to learn to live with the uncomfortable feelings sometimes in order to get things done. Sometimes we just have to do what needs to be done and live with that discomfort. So there are some other ADHD related factors that you can take a look at there, whether you have ADHD or not. These things do affect procrastination. Maybe we have problems getting started, tend to get sidetracked, want to do that last minute push, feel overwhelmed. And so we just get paralyzed. We have an impaired sense of time and fear of failure. And so I'm going to unpack each one of those a little bit and talk about what we can do about it. Let's talk first about problems getting started. For an adult with ADHD, just getting started on a task can be very difficult sometimes, especially if it's boring, if it's difficult, or it's going to take a long time. Because when you're distracted by external stimuli, as well as your own thoughts inside your head, then it can be hard to even make it to the starting line. And sometimes just figuring out where or how to start is the challenge. So problems with organization come into play when you try to plan, prioritize, sequence, put things in order, tasks that need to be done, to get started and to stay on track. Sometimes that can be a difficulty. And you have to train your brain. You have to manage those emotions. So maybe you feel like no matter what you do or how much you eliminate distractions, you just can't take that first step. You have problems getting started. You know the tasks that you need to do and complete, but your mind, your brain wants to think about everything else but what you need to do. And science actually teaches us that the physical connections in our brain, the neurochemicals in our brain, and how we process energy might cause our brain to jump to other things when we need to focus. So that wandering mind at the start of a task can keep anything from ever starting sometimes. So you have to train your brain to move forward, starting and finishing tasks. You have to know that it's going to have a tendency to want to wander. And I teach people how to do that in my coaching. So let's talk about having a tendency to get sidetracked. We begin on something, or we think about getting started and we get sidetracked. Once you finally do get started, you can get easily sidetracked. Something else draws your attention away, and then the original task gets further delayed. And it can be difficult when you have ADHD to regulate your attention. So once you're able to get your attention focused on a task, then you may find it's hard to sustain that attention because your mind wanders. And it can be hard to stay alert and motivated and on track when you aren't very interested or stimulated by that actual task. It's hard to get going, especially if it's something that's tedious or boring. You may find that when things are particularly tedious and boring, you delay getting to them until the last minute. And then at that point, you either feel so much pressure that you're able to motivate yourself to finally get started and complete the task, or you get stuck not completing the task at all, and then you have to face the consequences. Let's talk about this motivation, okay? Because waiting to feel motivated is not a good strategy. Let me say it again. Waiting to feel motivated is not a good strategy. One of the biggest factors contributing to procrastination is this notion that we have to feel motivated or feel inspired in that particular moment. And the reality is, if you wait until you're in the right frame of mind, especially if it's something you don't like, then you're never going to get anything done. When you find that when tasks are particularly tedious or boring and you delay putting them off until the last minute, then you're either going to feel that pressure and get it going, or you're going to motivate yourself to finally get started. That last minute push is something that I hear a lot of people talk about. They say, well, I work better under pressure. You heard anybody say that? I work better under pressure. And some people with ADHD and others that are very busy and creative, they claim that they're motivated by procrastination. They do their best work at the last minute. But when we put things off until the very last minute, then we're creating this emergency type situation. And this sense of urgency kind of helps propel us forward to get the job done. But there's a lot of stress and room for error when we operate like that, especially if we do it on a regular basis. So waiting until the last minute has consequences. It has a cost. As I mentioned, there's stress. You've got this fast approaching deadline, and then the immediacy of the negative consequences that are going to follow if you don't meet the deadline. And that can actually help you focus and complete a task. I'm sure you've experienced that. But doing things that way causes a lot of stress and anxiety. And the stress takes, whether you realize it or not, it takes a toll on you as well as people around you. And the reality is your best work is done when you're not rushing. Last minute rush jobs tend to have more careless mistakes. They're not as high quality, and they can lead to frequent burnout. So then we have the paralysis of overwhelm. We just feel overwhelmed, and we just have trouble doing anything. It's that analysis paralysis where you're overthinking things and you're faced with a task or project and you want to get started, but you just aren't able to make progress forward in any manner. And so you experience this crushing sense of pressure. And as much as you know that you need to get the job done, you just can't get moving. And since ADHD brains like mine work differently, a lot of us can start feeling overwhelmed really quickly. Then the ADHD stress kicks in and everything just starts to shut down. So maybe you have experienced that yourself, whether you have ADHD or not. And we have time blindness. That's something that is very common with people with ADHD. If you have trouble estimating how long a task is going to take to complete, then you might put it off because you're thinking that you're still allowing enough time to get it done. You think you have, quote, plenty of time, right? And ADHD can also make it difficult to track the passage of time. So you find that these deadlines kind of sneak up on you before you know it. And then we often assume that projects aren't going to take as long to finish as they really will. And it gives us this false sense of security until we see reality. Another is this fear of failure. And that keeps people kind of stuck in procrastination sometimes. Sometimes there can be so much anxiety associated with getting started on a task that those feelings create an even greater obstacle. And the fear of not doing the thing correctly, fear of imperfection, and fear of failure can all add up to procrastination. I mean, they add to the procrastination. So we look at what all we have to do, and then we convince ourselves that it's just never going to get completed, and we start to panic. Nothing ever gets started because we know exactly how it will end. We're going to fail miserably, and so we just put it off because we have that fear of failure. And kind of along with that is expectations. A lot of people with ADHD, they feel this fear of failure from all the times that they've tried to act like other people, but they just never lived up to they never felt like they lived up to their expectations. And this could be everything from trying to follow directions and always getting distracted to trying to listen to our parents and messing up, teachers getting on to us. And we felt this string of failure time and time again. So we just stopped trying. And that fear of failure is one of the emotional symptoms of ADHD. And like other symptoms, that area can be improved. It's not something that you have to stay stuck in. So what can we do to beat procrastination? So I'm going to share with you the the formula, which is wait no more. And hopefully this little acronym will help you to remember that. So the W stands for where and why. The key to managing your procrastination is figuring out creative ways to address the reasons that you procrastinate in the first place. So first, you have to identify where and why you procrastinate. When you avoid doing something and then you get lost in doing something else, and then everything hits the fan, do you continue to avoid that thing, or do you just jump to action and try to put out the fire? If you don't know why you are procrastinating and have even less of a clue as to what to do about it, then it makes sense that you're sidestepping it. Make a list now of the tasks that you are avoiding and try to identify the where and the why for those tasks. Okay, the A is address the emotions. None of the typical suggested solutions, breaking down tasks, scheduling them, avoiding distractions, all that stuff. None of that's going to help you manage your procrastination until you address the emotions that may be keeping you stuck. Because for many of us, our emotions, that fear of failure, fear of success, even resentment, that's going to be the cause of procrastination. So it starts with our thinking. And since thoughts drive emotions, practice positive self-talk. Like, tell yourself, making a mistake doesn't make me a failure. Avoid negative thinking traps like catastrophizing. In other words, saying, because I messed up on this one thing, I'm a loser and my life is completely ruined. We catastrophize. So W.A.I, instantly clear your list. The next step is to decide whether the tasks on your active list really belong there. Is it more of a wish list than a real to-do list? Because I know sometimes mine is. Is it realistic? In other words, while you continue to put off tasks you really have no intention of doing, they stay on your list and then they hang on there for dear life. And so then you continue to beat yourself up for procrastinating. So if you're worried about forgetting your ideas, maybe you can create a maybe list or a someday list. Have one for personal projects and one for business or professional. And then maybe schedule a time once a month to go through those and decide if they should actually go on a to-do list or be deleted. For example, are you really going to make your own dog treats? Okay, maybe some of you do, but that's just something that I think would be cool, but I'm probably never really going to do it. So now you take that off your list. You've made a decision to not do a task. So you're no longer procrastinating because you're not going to do it. And you can stop beating yourself up now. So clear the list. T is for task clarity. So you want to get clear on the task. Is there some part of the task that you just don't get? You may not even realize that that's the reason that you're stuck. So you just continue to dodge it. Ask yourself, are you able to complete these statements? The best place to start is blank. The very next action step is blank. The process for doing this part is blank. And when I'm done with this part, it's going to look like blank. If you can't answer those type of questions, then clarity may be the reason that you're procrastinating. So what do you need to do to get clear where things are fuzzy? That's what the T is for. All right, N is for no distractions. You want to clear distractions. Once you've decided what's on your to-do list that you need to do, you have a plan. and you're clear on what you need to do, it's still easy to get thrown off because you've got internal and external distractions. So ask yourself, what distractions are keeping you from doing your work? And how can you minimize them? Use a site blocker on the internet. Turn off messages that pop up, or message alerts. And maybe you've got personal issues. You schedule a time later, or maybe you do it now and deal with it. Turn the ringer off your phone. People coming into your office, you say, I really want to give you my full attention, but I need to do this first. Can I let you know when I'm available? Set boundaries, things like that. So you definitely want to clear those distractions. You want to overcome this idea of waiting for motivation. It's not a good strategy. And so you want to do everything in your power to overcome that tendency. Are you waiting for inspiration? I'll do it tomorrow, not now. Most of the time, you're not going to have the luxury of waiting until you feel like doing something. So the key is to figure out what's going to help you do it. Even when your mojo's not there, find an accountability partner, a body double, delegate the task, or hire somebody. Do it when you're rested and at your best. Work in an environment that works for you. So what do you need to do to handle a task even when you don't want to? In other words, what do you need to do to get yourself to live in that discomfort for a while in order to get things done? That's what that O is for. And the M is make self-care a priority. You need to fuel up. Sometimes when you don't feel like doing something, it's because you're not taking care of yourself, because your mental and emotional health and your physical health are all related. Self-care is super important, and when it comes to managing procrastination. And maybe you've never made that connection, but are you procrastinating because you're running on empty? Do you need to eat? Are you tired? Do you need a power nap? Did you take your meds? Do you need to get up and move and activate your brain? Do you need to drink more water? Maybe you're not hydrated. Do you need to slow down because you're overloaded? Do you need to journal and pray to handle some stress? Self-care is important. The O is outlaw perfectionism. There's a growing body of evidence that links perfectionism and productivity issues for people with ADHD and actually entrepreneurs as well. So do you have unrealistically high expectations on your work? And those expectations do not account for real work, real world constraints in which your work occurs. It just makes your work seem more intimidating. Do you put off work until the perfect conditions arise? Remember, you can't wait for motivation to just descend upon you. And the timing may never be perfect. You may never have enough money. You may never understand every single detail of every single step. But there is a phrase that I teach my coaching clients and that I try to live by myself, because I do have a tendency towards perfection. And that is done beats perfect. Done beats perfect every time. In other words, if you have something that needs to be done and you don't do it because you want it to be perfect, it would have been better for you to do it 80 to 90% than to not do it at all. So done beats perfect. Read and journal. So the best way to stop procrastinating is to become more aware in the moment of your decision because it is a decision, your decision to procrastinate. And you can do that by recording your thoughts in a journal. You can actually keep a procrastination journal. You can put the date and time of the impulse that you had to put something off, name what you're procrastinating, and what were you thinking and feeling when you thought of doing that task? Because that's going to help you. Like, am I afraid of it? I don't understand it. And what were you tempted to do instead? And then what did you tell yourself when you were tempted to do something else? And then what did you ultimately choose to do? If you did that just for a week, it would be incredibly eye-opening for you, I believe. And so that will help you understand why you're doing it so that you can overcome it. And even doing a small thing counts. Just get started. Just start anywhere. That's the hardest part. It's almost like when you're pushing a rock up a hill, you finally just get it over the hill and it goes really fast down. It's all downhill once you get started. Take that first sloppy step. It does not have to be perfect. Take the first imperfect action and just do something. Starting a challenging task triggers this pain response in our brain. And our brain says, no, I don't want to do this. I don't like discomfort. But that response, guess what? That goes away after you start to feel momentum. After about 15, 20 minutes, it's gone. Knowing that discomfort is only temporary may help you. It's going to go away. You will not feel like that for the entire project. And that may make it easier to begin working. You may have heard of the Pomodoro method. Set a timer for 25 minutes, work in deep focus, and then reward yourself with a 5-minute break. But the goal needs to be to just start. Don't think about finishing, just think about starting. You don't even have to start at the beginning. You just need to do something that is related to that task. Just do something. Get started on it. A few other tips, just real quickly. Break large tasks down into small steps. Use positive social pressure. Get an accountability partner, a body double. Make boring tasks more fun. Make a game out of it. You know, how many of this thing can I get done in a certain amount of time? That type of thing. Create your own deadlines and pretend like they're real, or make them real by having, let's say you need to clean your house. We'll invite people over. And then you got that deadline. You got to have it clean before they come, that type of thing. Create the right work environment. It's really silly to sit there and try to overcome procrastination when there's a million distractions and things around you that make it even more difficult. And then lastly, I just want to encourage you to take one step at a time. One small step at a time. Take these tips that I've shared with you, pick out a few of them that stand out and try those. You may not want to do everything. You may not be able to do everything, but take one or two of these tips and apply them this week, today. Do not procrastinate and see if it helps you get things done. I hope you have enjoyed this free training, and that is the end. And I wish you the best. And I know you are going to do great things. I can feel it in my bones. Thank you.